What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I am joined by the boy genius of the WiseTake Nation, a.k.a. the Bart Simpson of the WiseTake Nation, Mr. KamG, not one, not two, but three threes. You can find him on Twitter at KamG DFS. Cam, we've been doing the Wise streams on YouTube just to kind of give back to the community. It's the holiday season, feel like giving and stuff, man. So say hello to the YouTube nation.
Yeah, first time. I used to do a lot of YouTube stuff, but I haven't been on in a while. But yeah, first time on YouTube in a while, and been doing Wise streams every once in a while as well for like the premium members and stuff. So I'll get my face out there today, and hopefully we have a good day.
There it is, man. It's been too long since the YouTube nation has seen KamG 333. I think anyway. And I know it's been a while since you've been on YouTube because we don't do the YouTube show anymore at night. I do like a core 4 thing I put out on YouTube, so that's how you know it's been a while. With that said, nation, those of you who are new to the channel, please subscribe. This is the NBA Wise Stream, a stream we normally do for our premium subscribers, and we'll continue to do for our premium subscribers, just for the time being, putting it out there for you guys to kind of see and to, win some DFS money yourself. But subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the notifications bell. We have all kinds of DFS content that we put on this channel for free all the time. NFL stuff, NBA stuff, Core 4 stuff. So make sure you're subscribed. Hit the notifications bell. Welcome. And please, if you could all hit the like button simultaneously, that would be awesome. Like right now, if we can go from 0 likes to 25 or whatever, that would be awesome. We could just do that. So, yeah. Anyway, with that said, let's just see something real quick. Let's talk about this slate a little bit. So we know that we've got a what is it? We got like a massive slate. It's like 10 games or something like that. What are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, 10 games. Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of value to start the day, but I think just in general, like there's a lot of value that opened up as we went on. Looks like Moutier is going to be coming in projected as like one of the better value plays today on a lot of models. Probably going to be pretty chalky as well. And then also with the news of yesterday with Aaron Baines being out, that opened up kind of that front court ish for the Suns as well, that I think a lot of people are probably going to flock to, and Kamitsky, Saric, and then we can talk about maybe some of the other openings there with Diallo and Bridges as well, if you wanted to go there in some bigger field tournaments. We also have Memphis guys being out, and we're still waiting on that news, I believe, to drop with Joe Val and Kyle Anderson still being deemed questionable or game time decisions. So that will kind of, for me at least, open up some things as well if we get news that either one of those guys are out or potentially both, or if someone's in as well. I think that's kind of interesting, but I think like the slate's pretty wide open. There's a lot of options. I think right now I have like 47 people or something in my player pool, but we'll have to see as it goes on. We have 2 hours left, but I like the slate in general.
I agree. I like it also. I think, like you said, you have the Utah stuff. We started the day with that. We'll have to see what else kind of opens up and falls out, vice versa. You mentioned Jonas Valanciunas. That's probably the most important to me because of the matchup. Like if he's in a smash spot. And then if he's out, you definitely want to load up on his backups. Everything else seems like probable this, probable that, but we've been getting a lot of surprises. Yesterday, Thomas Bryant was dropped on us like right around this time, and never really know. So it's interesting to I'm sure Moutier is going to be pretty popular. We'll talk about him when we get down to Value Town at point guard. Cam, let's go ahead and jump in. Cam will be covering FanDuel. I'll be covering DraftKings. Let's go to point guards, Cam. Let's go to the tippy top. Any point guards you're looking to pay up for today?
Yeah, I think you can play Luka. Like you can play him every day. It's just a matter of if you can get there. At 12-5, he's on the back end of a back-to-back as well. But with the matchup against Minnesota, I think he makes a lot of sense as well. You can play Luka every day, just consistent. Usually going to get you at least a floor of 55, most likely in any game, and then it's just a matter of with the value if you want to get there or not. I think you definitely can on the slate. It's just a roster construction type thing. I also like Trae Young a lot today. 10-3 on FanDuel going up against Brooklyn. Just a really good matchup for him in general. And if he can catch fire, I think he could be the highest scoring point guard in terms of that position on FanDuel today. So for the top guys, if we're going like above 10K or 9K, those are like the two guys that I'm playing. I think Dame's fine, but just the way he's been performing lately, and the other guys that I could get to for just a little bit more money and the value we have on this slate, I just don't see myself really making that move. Even if he's going to be less owned, I just think it seems like a better decision to go with the other two and kind of get rid of Dame out of that.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? Luka, I agree with you. Luka's the main one. I think I'm going to be playing a lot of Luka every day. You know, the difference is, am I at 40 or am I at 60? And like that's usually or even higher, but that's usually the question, especially in a matchup like this against Minnesota. Trae Young, I don't know how much I get. It's an awesome matchup against Brooklyn. In that game, like, I may have to force him in at like 10 to 15% just to have some. The problem is there's already a few other guys because you got Mitchell and Moutier, and if you are playing those guys, they take up so much space of your guards. So then you end up having there are a lot of good guards in general. Like on FanDuel, you have the separations in position. On DraftKings, you can play a lot of these guys, and like they're all like in pretty good spots. So what it comes down to is pricing, and none of them on DraftKings I don't think are phenomenally priced, except for Damian Lillard. Problem with Damian Lillard is 8,100 Cam on DraftKings. It's back end of a back-to-back, but they didn't play much yesterday. They gave up early after getting blown out. He projects really, really well. The issue is, number one, he hasn't been good, and number two, I'm a little bit concerned with the matchup, just because the one position, like Corey Joseph is a good defender, and like that he's the only good defender on the team at this point. Maybe Harrison Barnes, you could argue, used to be at one time a good defender, but that's my concern. So in an optimal build, he would fit because he projects so well at 8,100, and the pricing is a little tighter. The issue, of course, is I just don't like the matchup that much. So I'll have some Dame. He seemed more of an optimal thing. Like I had to kind of lower his projection manually to get him out of the optimal builds. But with that said, I'm with you. It's mainly Luka for me. I'll talk about some of these other guys at the different positions that they are. In the meantime, Cam, take us down to the mid-tier point guard.
Yeah, I like Dinwiddie. Also, he's 8'7". I guess you could deem that mid-tier, but going up against Atlanta, really good spot here, especially with Kyrie out still. He's been seeing basically 30 to 35 minutes a game, depending on how the game flow goes. It's just a matter of if you think he has like a ceiling at that price. I think he potentially could. We've seen him put up around 50 or 60s, and that'll definitely do it at 8-7 there. So I like Dinwiddie, and I also like Kemba in the mid-tier there at 7-7. Kind of just looking at some stuff. I believe Marcus Smart is missing today, and with that, Kemba's kind of just seeing like pretty good usage and increased fantasy points per minute along those lines. So I like him at 7-7 as well. There's not a whole lot other like in the mid tier that I'm super excited about. I guess Jeff Teague could be deemed mid tier. He's 5'8", in a pretty decent spot here versus Dallas. I don't necessarily love it. Like he's just a guy that I would add in the player pool, but not a priority to like jam in my lineups or anything whatsoever. Just kind of another guy I'd mention in the mid tier, but for the most part, it would just be Dinwiddie and Kemba kind of in that mid range. And honestly, at point guard, there's not a whole lot of other guys that I'm looking at. They're kind of all injured, to be honest.
Yeah, they're all injured, and of course, there's Moutier taking up a whole bunch of slots. I'm sure. I'm assuming. Anyway, I'm with you. The mid tier is not terribly strong. Kemba Walker, I would think, is going to be popular on both sides. He's another one that just projects real well at his price. With Smart off the court, all these guys do get a little boost. I think that what's his name? Malcolm Brogdon is worth a look only because this is a day where he's not going to get played that much. Again, like the 7-7 price tag's about right. It's not like you're getting that great, but you're not really getting a great deal with any of these guys, in my opinion. Kemba appears, Dame and Kemba project the best. But again, I think like for if you were playing cash, maybe you'd want to stick with guys that project the best. In tournaments, I am willing to take more chances and pay a couple $100 more to get a Spencer Dinwiddie type, like you had mentioned. And same thing with Trae Young. Like I'm gonna force in some, even though I don't love Trae Young today. Because I don't love his price. I'm gonna force him in because it's gonna be a little bit different. And he has the ceiling to go. He can go for 60 something. So if that happens to fall your way, Dinwiddie brings it back and balls out. I think you're in a pretty good situation. So I'm with you on that. I'll grab some Dinwiddie. He falls in line with a lot of those other guys that we'll talk about at shooting guard. Eric Bledsoe.
Don't you think like Dame and Kemba are kind of always like the guys who project? I feel like every slate, those are the guys that like project well. Like they just keep them at this price where it's like, yeah, you kind of want to play them, but like they never really do good for you. Yeah. But like people will still like run them because they project well, and like they usually have a decent amount of ownership. So I get it if like you're playing like a single entry or more like optimal cash type build, but I always find myself, I'm like, yeah, they like project well, they're good value, but then it seems like if you look at it, like when you go back and kind of like look at how you did or like results or where you went, and I'm just like, they never really do all that much, but I don't know. They kind of seem like the same guy to me.
I totally understand that. I'm with you on that. And there was one day where Kemba was like 6'6" and I went underweight, and that was a mistake. I was dumb for that. But now it's 7'6", 40. Like if he does go for 40, he's still not hurting you for not having enough. So you really need this guy to still go for a score he hasn't done very often. I'm with you there. I'll have some. No doubt, but I'm not like I'm not designating 40% or nothing like that for Kemba or Dame. I'm just gonna have some because they project well, and I'll feel like an idiot if my projections were telling me they were the best plays and I don't have any. I'll just feel dumb. But with that said, I'm not crazy about the hits here either. Last guy I'll talk about is Eric Bledsoe is 6,200 on DraftKings. He's played like complete shit. Middleton is back. He started. They all barely played because they beat the Knicks by like 100. But at halftime they were up by 40, so they all barely played. But 6'2" is kind of cheap for him. I guess there's one other guy that yesterday, dude, I had like the worst. Like everybody was just so inefficient. I had all these players that took all kinds of shots. Kendrick Nunn was like 3 for 15. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? 3 for 15. Like just everybody that I had. Lonzo Ball was like 2 for 12. 2 for 12. Why is he even taking 12 shots? I don't know, but he did. And he gave me an opportunity, and he couldn't hit shit. It was just like all the guys that I was heavy on, like the volume was there, which is what I was chasing, but they happened to all just shit the bed performance-wise. They all had terrible, terrible games. Yeah. With that said, Kendrick Nunn.
Those days are so frustrating.
Oh, so frustrating. Kendrick Nunn has been playing like dog shit for a while. But with Dragic out again, the minutes are there. The usage is there. It's just a matter of can he hit the damn shots. So, I'm going to play him again because I just love pain. I just love it. It just feels great. Can't take us out of Value Town.
Yeah, so this is on FanDuel specifically. I think this is going to be where a lot of the ownership is going to be just starting off with Emmanuel Mudiay. What is he? Stone min price? Yeah, 3.5 on FanDuel here, projecting probably going to be the highest owned player, I'd assume, on FanDuel. And it's a pretty good matchup when you're looking at like position specific numbers. I don't know. What do you think about him? Like, do you think he's going to be the guy today that you're just going to jam in? Like, I ran an initial crunch and I was getting like 100%. Yeah. But I don't know. So I feel like I have PTSD after the DSJ.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. Here's what I'll say about Moody. Like last night, I was like, I'm not playing this dude. He got like 5 minutes left. He got 5 minutes when Conley got hurt. Then today, I actually dug in and looked at it, and Conley did play 23 and a half minutes. So those minutes are now gone. So these guards are going to have to play more. Exum and Moutier, they're going to have to play like 18 minutes to 20 minutes. Even if they put Mitchell at the point, Ingles at the 2, and O'Neal at the 3, and they stick with that deal, at some point they're gonna need to utilize these guards. So when I thought about it back, I just don't see how he doesn't get XYZ time. And one thing about Moutier is even when we used to play this game when he was on the Knicks, like if he is gonna get minutes, he typically has a pretty good shot at hitting that type of value because of how cheap he is on both sides. So I fought it.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what the starting lineup looks like. We won't know probably, right? That game's later, I'm assuming. But I'll be reserving spots just in case he does start. And if they start Ingles, maybe I switch some to him. But on FanDuel, you're kind of fucked. You have to make a decision. It was a little scary that Moutier, who seemed like he was in the rotation, all of a sudden wasn't. But that could have been a matchup thing. They were playing the Sixers. You got Ben Simmons out there, who's a massive point guard. You can't just throw Moutier on him. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was more of a matchup thing. So I am gonna go heavy on Moutier. I am. I just am. I just think like 3,200, 3,500 on depending on the site. I think you have to try it, right? Because we don't really have much else that's like better. If you had something else that's better, let's go. But I don't really like, sucking on sevens, man.
Yeah, it's tough not to get there. It's just one of those things like you don't truly know just because, like you were just stating, like he got 5 minutes last game. Like he's been seeing like low mid, like 10 to 15 minute. I don't know. It's just tough to kind of project, but logically speaking, right, you would think that he's going to see an increase in minutes and everything like that. So just based off projections, like you kind of just have to get there today. I also think that another really good value play, probably more on FanDuel than DraftKings, is going to be like Tyus Jones. He should see increased minutes again versus Chicago, like 25 to 30 minutes with those guys out. And then Melton as well from the same game. He's been producing probably better from a fantasy point per minute standpoint than Tyus Jones. So I actually kind of have him in I have him as like more of like a tournament play than Tyus Jones, just because I think a lot of people are going to kind of go to Tyus Jones just by default. Last year, I feel like Tyus Jones last year was just like kind of a guy that everyone went to, like automatic plug and play when news came out that he was going to be starting. And I just feel like that trend kind of just continues. Like everyone just looks at him, they'll be like, plug him in. But if you kind of look at Melton here, he's been producing with the absence of Ja Morant and stuff. So I don't mind him if he's going to be even half or a fourth of the ownership that Jones is going to be. And then another guy I'm looking at is Chris Dunn as well. I don't know if he's going to start again, but saw like back-to-back 30-minute games. And like this is a guy that was a really like high kind of like prospect coming out of college. And when he got opportunity in the past, like he's been able to put up some pretty high fantasy point outings. And versus Memphis, like this is a good spot if he gets to start and sees 30 minutes again at 4-7. Like I think that's a pretty good price standpoint for him as well. And then DJ Augustine, I have a little bit of interest in seeing pretty consistent minutes and going up against Phoenix, who he's had really good success again. So the value, in my opinion, at the point guard position is really solid today. And it's going to be a spot that I think is probably going to be the position where everyone pays down and then kind of pays up at other positions.
It's interesting on FanDuel because on DraftKings, a lot of those guys are priced up a little bit more. So it's not like it's not as pretty down there. Like Tyus Jones is in the 5K range on DraftKings. DeAnthony Melton is even in the 4.6 today. Dunn is 4.5, 4.6. So none of that is like they're all like in similar roles as like you expect Moutier to be in, except he's 3,200 on FanDuel. What's interesting is I would think with all that, I mean, the thing is Luka's a point guard, so Luka's gonna be owned. So people are going to have to pick. So if anything, that may, because of how deep that position is, either those guys all go crazy low owned and they shouldn't be that low at that price, or Moutier is not as popular as he should be because people want to work, I want to play Doncic, but I really wanted to play this value play that I found. I don't really want to play Moutier. So it's kind of interesting to see how it turns out. On DraftKings, it's not, like I said, it's not pretty. I think Kobe White is certainly in play at 4,700. DeAnthony Melton's been balling, but he's been doing it with like 23 to 25 minutes because Tyus Jones is their first choice. Chris Dunn's 4,500. I'm just worried about ceiling. Like Corey Joseph, again, kind of worried about ceiling a little bit, although I guess I don't mind Corey Joseph. Brad Wanamaker, 4,100. He was awful the last time he was chalked. He's not going to be chalked. But with Marcus Smart out, there's minutes to go around. I don't love it. So, like, on DraftKings, my point is, like, it's not nearly as attractive. There is one guy, though, that I do like down here that I genuinely like, and that's actually Rajon Rondo. 4K for Rajon Rondo. It's a volatile play, right? He's got a really low floor because his minutes, he could decide to play, he could end up playing 10 to 15 minutes. We've seen them happen, but we've also seen him play upwards of 30, depending on the situation. And he's 4K. When he's on the court, he typically does do stuff. So I'm cool with Rondo at 4K. That's probably outside of Moutier as of right now, my favorite. Any interest in Exum at all? Like, how does he tie into this? They got Dante Exum. He played, like, they tried in the first half. He got like 7 minutes, never saw the court again. That was before Conley got hurt. Then Conley got hurt, and then Moutier came in for like a second. Oh, I don't even know if Moutier came in after that. I think Ingles came in directly, and they just rocked with like Ingles at shooting guard and point guard. Mitchell and him were going back and forth with 1 and 2s, but I mean,
right?
I don't know. Moutier.
I mean, he's interesting, right? Like, if he gets the minutes, he could just do just as well. Like last year when he got minutes, he produced pretty well. I mean, it's just hard to like really project him for more minutes than Moutier,
Right.
But it's one of those things, like if you want to zig if you want to go one way when everyone's going the other way, like you could definitely do that in like a really large field tournament. Just because that would be like a very, very contrarian play, and like you're gonna have the same build pretty much as everyone else. It's just gonna be the other min price guy that literally the same position on the same team, and I wouldn't be shocked. Like, we've seen that happen multiple times. It's just one of those things that's kind of hard to like say like, oh yeah, he's gonna go over. Like, I think that would be a pretty hot take, but you never know, right? Like, everyone thinks that they knows what's going to happen, but like you never truly do. So if you're making multiple lineups, like maybe you don't have to do much to go over the field on him. So he's probably going to be 1% owned. Like, you could just you could have 1 or 2% of them, and just hopefully that day, or hopefully that 1 to 2% of lineups that you have him in is like everyone else around him does well. But I don't think I'm gonna get there, but like I guess it makes sense if you're kind of like projecting that he gets more minutes than the field thinks he's going to.
I got one other one. I'm gonna ask you to put yourself. So you've played on DraftKings before, you know the deal. On DraftKings, Cam Reddish is on FanDuel. It's a different story. Reddish is small forward. On DraftKings, point guard, shooting guard eligible. Cam Reddish is 3,400. He's expected. I mean, we don't know where he should be in. He got 24 minutes against Golden State. And that game was a blowout, right? Put up an 18, put up a dud. 3,400 to him or 3,200 for Moutier. Moutier's still stronger, but like he is technically a pivot, right?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Like, I have Reddish for FanDuel. Like, I have him at the small forward. Right. He's like 3'8". I like him today, actually. It's just I wish what is it, Huerter, or however you say it. I wish he wasn't in today. Yeah, because that makes it a little more tough to project, because I could see a scenario where like you get Bembry, Huerter, and like him just kind of everyone sharing minutes equally. Right. But just kind of looking into like the matchup, like 3-point shooting, everything like that, which Reddish tends to do more than like the average player. I think it kind of sets up well for him here, and if like he could, if there's a scenario where he does handle the ball some as well, like this is a really good spot for him at 3-4 on DraftKings. You don't see a lot of guys like that that price that are probably going to see, what do you think, 20 to 25 minutes? I think it's probably a safe projection if you're going to get some of these guys out that we're projecting, with like Crab and Hunter. Those guys aren't going to see the court. So Reddish was like a guy that I had interest in at small forward. So I'm totally cool with that. And like, obviously you could play both too, right? You could either play both or pivot off Moutier to him and Or you could just play like a superstars and scrub lineup and kind of go that look. But he's definitely a guy I have interest in too.
Yeah. Let's go over to shooting guard. Cam, take me to the top. What do you see up there?
Yeah, shooting guard's stacked today. There's so many guys that I like at this top tier. I pretty much like everyone besides Jimmy Butler in the top tier. Donovan Mitchell is a guy that you mentioned before. He's projected as one of the highest scoring shooting guards and projected like really high ownership also. So that kind of correlates with that. I just don't know, I don't know. I'll have to see. I think it's a little bit different scenario for you on DraftKings because I think he's pretty mispriced over there if I recall.
Who's that?
Mitchell.
Yeah, he's 7-1 over here.
Yeah, so it's hard for me on FanDuel. Like I get it. He's 8K, but there's just a lot of guys on FanDuel that are also like $100 or $200 more at literally like projected single digits compared to like really high ownership right now that I'm looking at. So I don't know if I'm going to play Mitchell, it's going to be in like a single entry or cash build if you're kind of doing that route. But I just don't see like in tournaments, I don't see myself really going there. To be honest, when I could kind of distribute around like a Levine, Devin Booker, Wiggins, Devontae Graham, like all those guys are all in, I think, like equal spots. It's just like obviously Mitchell might see somewhat of an increased usage or maybe ball handling or something along those lines if Conley's out. But like some of these other guys that are competing with him around the same price are probably in better spots, to be honest. So I'm kind of looking at that and trying to get around, just mix around these other guys out there. Zach LaVine, he's 8-5 versus Memphis. Really good spot for him. Like he's had really good history versus Memphis as well, and seeing just very consistent minutes and a really good amount of usage. And if he gets hot, he could very easily outscore Mitchell today at way less ownership. Devin Booker also in a pretty good spot here versus Orlando. Orlando's been giving up a pretty good amount of points to like shooting guards or like shooting wing players. So I like this matchup for Booker as well. Andrew Wiggins, shooting guard versus Dallas, is pretty consistent. And Devontae Graham versus Golden State. I think he's a little too expensive for me, to be honest, but I like him. So I'm just looking at kind of this scenario, and I think there's a lot of other. I agree. Donovan Mitchell's a really good play, but I think to kind of get locked in on him when you're playing tournaments and multiple lineups could be mistake, just because, like maybe specifically on FanDuel, but because DraftKings you can play like however many guards you want, but I just think there's other guys in this range that could easily outscore him at way less ownership, but. Donovan Mitchell's the top play in the tier, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, on DraftKings, like you said, a little bit of a different story because he's 7-1. His price is just so much cheaper over there. I'm going to be overweight on him. But at the same time, like I had mentioned, that the position's really deep. So the problem with going overweight on Mitchell is it prevents me from going too heavy on all these other guys that are all in really good spots. You had mentioned a lot of them. Devin Booker, number one. We just saw his price isn't terrible, and we just saw what Beal was able to do against Orlando. Booker is the same exact position, same exact role.
Yeah.
I think CJ McCollum. We talk about Dame. If you don't like Dame, you know this game's going to be competitive. If you don't like Dame, then because of the matchup, then you'd probably prefer McCollum in this situation. He's also someone you might want to have some. Yeah. Levine, I love for tournaments, but I can't really grab 20-30% like I would want to in a normal night because it seems irresponsible because Mitchell's so cheap. I feel like I'm leaving $1,000 on the table. Like, Levine would have to go for like 50 or 60, like 60 or something like that to really, really like make me feel like it was the right move. And he did do it. Levine went for 59 against Memphis last time. With Tyus Jones there, assuming that Tyus Jones is covering Satoransky or whoever's playing point guard, Levine should have a pretty soft matchup today. So
Mm-hmm.
I like Levine. Right now, I'd like to get around 20% on these guys. It's just difficult because I have so much Mitchell taking up all that spot, and then Moutier taking up another guard spot. But I mean, yeah, like you said, and another guy. Well, let me check and see what position he is on FanDuel before he's shooting guard too. Yeah, Andrew Wiggins against Dallas. Wiggins has been awesome. He's been playing great. Dallas is not a good defense. He we like Luka. We'll talk about Porzingis in a second. But what about that side of the game? And so with all these guys, I'm trying to get like 15 seems to be the number that I can get a decent amount of exposure and still go through. But I wish I can go I wish there was a way for me to go a little heavier on them. But that can only happen if I lower Mitchell, and I don't know if I'm ready to do that on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I would.
Yeah.
On FanDuel, I'd still have a lot of Mitchell. I would just play a little less because the pricing for Mitchell isn't like phenomenal. Like if he was 8K without Connolly,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's all that attractive on DraftKings all of a sudden. He's so close. Like
Mhm.
Levine is $8,000 more, or $900 more on DraftKings, whereas Levine is $500 more on FanDuel. So, just for an example. But I do like those guys quite a bit. Booker, Levine are probably two of my favorites, with Wiggins closely behind. But again, it all depends on how much I can fit around Mitchell. With that said, take us down to I guess we'll just go right to the mid range.
Yeah, so right now I have Buddy Hield. I think he's fine as well. Like he's gonna see the minutes as we've seen. He's just been consistently getting around 35 to 40 minutes each night. I don't see why that would necessarily change. He's 7'4". And I think it's a pretty decent spot for him as well. Like Portland's been pretty poor defensively, specifically in like certain games, and I could see Buddy if he gets hot. Like he's just been chucking up shots. So I like him as like a tournament play today as well. Like I just think the shooting guard position's super loaded. Bogdan, if he plays, he's a game time decision right now. I think he's a pretty solid price here at 5'7". Evan Fournier, probably more of a cash game play here, but 6'9" on FanDuel has been consistently getting around 5 to 6x on his current price tag. Pretty decent matchup as well versus Phoenix. Shooters have been seem to be doing well versus them. And then Dylan Brooks versus Chicago, I think he's in a pretty decent spot. Been seeing a good amount of minutes, and he's just really like shooting dependent, and kind of how depends on like how he's doing in game. If we're gonna see him do well, I think Chris Middleton's fine as well. He's just a little. I would probably play him on DraftKings instead of FanDuel. He's 6'9" on FanDuel. You don't really get the bonuses for like shooting or anything like that on FanDuel as well. So I think he's more of a DraftKings play. And then the last guy in the mid tier is Garrett Temple. Been seeing pretty consistent minutes with some of the absences that Brooklyn continues to have. And he's a really solid price, I think, at 5'4" in a matchup versus Atlanta. So I have him. I have a lot of him as well. So I like those guys in the mid tier.
Yeah, I'm with you. Same guys for me, man. Middleton, like you said, on DraftKings, his price is more attractive. Only played 18 minutes in that last game, but he started, so I would think he's going to get closer to 30 today. And that's also a weakness of Detroit. They just get destroyed by wings. So I like that call.
Yep.
I think Jaylen Brown also worth mentioning in the mid tier. With he should also receive somewhat of a usage bump. He's been playing really well in general. I don't love the matchup against Miami. Miami went to overtime last night. We got Jimmy Butler. There's a few variables. I'm just not crazy about that game, but the pricing for everybody is somewhat fair. With that said, I think that's it for now. Let's go down to Value Town.
Yeah. So there's DeAndre Bembry here. With DeAndre Hunter being out, I think he's going to project to see a little bit of a boost. But like I mentioned before with Cam Reddish, like I'm a little bit concerned that they share minutes, and I could see the field being a little too high on Bembry compared to what he should be. But I think he's worth mentioning. Terrence Ross again for the same reason kind of talked about with Fournier. He's still 4'7". Been seeing pretty consistent minutes as well, so I don't mind Ross. And then that's about it. I don't really have like a ton of other guys like super cheap at this position. I really think the build today for FanDuel is to go kind of pay up for those shooting guards because there's just a ton of like 8K, mid 7 to 8K range shooting guards that I think are really solid options. And with the value at the other positions, I just don't necessarily see why you wouldn't go there because I think these guys have potential to go like 50, 60 points. So not a ton of value at the shooting guard position, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's hard to come down here with how deep it is up top. We talked about Cam Reddish and some of these guys already, so I'm not gonna like talk about them again. But yeah, it's I would agree. It's like you don't want to get too married with the guys down there because we just went over that mid tier to upper mid tier, and it's loaded. Let's go over to small forwards. Take me to the top, Cam. Small forwards.
Yeah, so kind of like you mentioned before, like Giannis 12-4 versus Detroit. He's not like necessarily a shooter or anything, but it's just Giannis. And if he gets the minutes, like he could go off any night. I don't think he projects as like an optimal play whatsoever, but like I could see him just going off if he gets 36 minutes. It's just really hard to project when the Bucks are going to blow people out and when he's going to get 20 minutes compared to when they're going to play a team close and he gets 36. But if it stays close, like he's going to do well. So I think probably I don't necessarily in basketball really like correlate games or anything. I think that's kind of more of a football thing for me. But like I think this is probably a scenario where you probably want to stack like this game so Giannis gets his full allotment of minutes because if this game blows out again, he's probably just going to play 20 to 25 minutes. And then at 12-4, you're screwed. LeBron as well. He's 11K, kind of the same prototype player as Giannis, just kind of doing a little bit less because he doesn't have to do as much as Giannis does for the Bucks. But like we saw Giannis just absolutely dominate Utah, and if a lot of people are going to go with like a Mitchell or something like that, I guess you could kind of hope that this game's close and like LeBron kind of takes over like Giannis did versus Utah in the same sense. I think when Giannis went off, though, Gobert was out, so it's a little bit different of a scenario, but it's always worth mentioning like a 3 LeBron. I think that makes sense. Those two guys at the top are really the only guys that are there. I think you could also play Jaylen Brown. He's 7'1", but CK already mentioned him before. And then Kelly Oubre is 6'9". Not a priority player, anything, but he's been playing well and just consistently sees a lot of minutes. Just not a great matchup versus Orlando. And there's some guys in the value kind of tier that I have interest in. So that's about it, though.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's really two main options. We talked about Doncic already. I like him. As far as LeBron and Giannis, I prefer LeBron. LeBron's only 10K. His price has come down. I know with Rondo back, blah, 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 blah. Matchup's not great. But we're already on Utah pretty heavily. It's nice to have somebody to bring it back with. So I'm with you. LeBron is a guy I'm going to have a good chunk of. I'll have some Giannis, but I'll have more LeBron because the price is lower. And, that's how I'm going to answer that. With that said, take us to the mid-tier, Cam.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of like kind of if plays, but like I mentioned before, there's like Jay Crowder if some of these guys sit. Justice Winslow as well is coming off injuring like more of a little increased role there. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is fine as well versus Minnesota. Minnesota can just pretty much give it up to anyone, and THJ is consistently taking pretty good amount of shots and seeing a good amount of minutes as well. So I don't hate that, but like none of these guys are priority plays. I think the main guy that I'm looking at is going to be Taurean Prince. He's 5'5", going up against Atlanta. It's just a really good matchup for him. And he's the guy I'll have a lot of in that like mid tier for Brooklyn there. And he's projecting like way better than a lot of the other guys I just mentioned previously. And I'll have a very good amount of him.
Yeah, I like it. TJ Warren's the first guy I'll mention on DraftKings. He's 5,500. I think whenever he's like in that 5-5 or less mode, I just feel like he's so likely to go for 28, 29, 30 and over that I'll play him. He's not 4-8 like he was the other day. He was 4-8 one day. I just was all over it. I couldn't believe how low owned he was. So I'm not quite at that level at 5-5, but I'm interested. I think Bogdanovich should also see an increase. He's coming off 2 terrible games, but he's really been like a big source of offense for this team for like most of the season. It was really just 2 really bad games, and they were against two good defensive teams. He had to deal with Al Horford, and he had to deal with Pascal Siakam. It's just not ideal. The matchup isn't like phenomenal. He's going to see like Anthony Davis and some of these guys if he's playing the 4, but Anthony Davis, I'm not as worried about. Like, yeah, blocks, but that's about it. Bogdanovich, a 3-point shooter. I'm not terribly worried about him not being able to get a 3 off. So I expect him to take some shots. I think he'll play well. And he's 6,100 over here on a site. You get extra points for 3-pointers. I'll cut it there for small forward. We'll talk about some of these guys at power forward. Let's go over to Value Town small forwards.
Yeah, we kind of touched on them maybe in previous positions, but like you mentioned, Cam Reddish is probably the lowest I'll go. He's 3-8 in this matchup versus Brooklyn. Like I said before, just only concern if Huerter is going to kind of share the minutes with a lot of those guys that we've talked about previously. But at that price tag,
at the very least, we did just hear that Reddish is starting. So at least we know that.
Oh, he is? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, I like him then a little bit more, like a little bit less concerned about that if he's going to start. But I think this is a good chance for him to have a lot of open looks from 3. So I like him at that price tag a lot. And then Joe Ingles, like you mentioned before, he's 4-5 on FanDuel, would be the other kind of value small forward with a lot of the absences for Utah there, or with not a lot of the absences, but just with Conley out, I think Ingles could see somewhat of an increase, just like kind of pretty much like all these starters are going to see for Utah. So we could talk about how everyone's going to see an increase. I just think that's pretty well known. It's just when you look at Ingles, he's 4-5, so it's just a little bit more appealing. And we've seen even with Conley him get in the 30s. So maybe without him now, we could see a little bit more than that, and would just absolutely crush that price tag at 4 or 5. So I like him as well. That's about it though for like value for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. You mentioned Joe Ingles. I was a little higher on him last night. Still going to play him some. He's 4,900. I still think he'll get some time to run the offense. When we do see that lineup go with Mitchell and Ingles, if Mitchell struggles, Ingles is another guy we know from last year that can kind of take over, help distribute, help to get the offense going and take a lot of shots. So I think it's a value play probably worth having, especially if you are heavy on the Utah Jazz tonight. I don't see any other value even worth mentioning. Let's go over to power forwards and take it back to the top.
Yeah, we didn't get Memphis news, did we?
Not yet, I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, so you can play Anthony Davis. I'm not going to today, I don't think. He's 10-8 on FanDuel. I think if you want to play AD, you're just going to play him on DraftKings, or he's 9-4. And then Sabonis, I think, is 8-8 on FanDuel, maybe a little bit less even on DraftKings. I think he's more of a kind of like a cash game play. It's a pretty good spot though for him versus OKC and like the revenge narrative there. If that game wasn't a blowout last time, he was doing really well before like he kind of lost a little bit of run in the fourth quarter. So I don't hate Sabonis, just his price tag's a little bit too high, but I think he's more of like a cashy optimal play because he's got a pretty good floor. And then Jaren Jackson Jr. is kind of like the question mark for me in this like kind of higher end tier range above 7K. I don't really know when we're going to see the news on Joe Val or not, but it's probably, I'm kind of approaching this scenario where if Joe Val's out, I'm just going to play Jaren Jackson Jr. a lot, and vice versa. If Joe Val's in, I'm probably going to play a lot of Joe Val. We can talk about Joe Val when we get to centers, but I think that's probably the key piece of news that we're waiting for left on this slate. I think everyone everything else has pretty much been formulated that we're looking for. It's just kind of that last piece of news. Hopefully we get it before lock, but that's kind of how I'm approaching it. And then Jabari Parker and Rashawn Holmes are two other guys at that position that I would consider playing. But I think I would rank it Jaren Jackson, Jabari, Holmes. They're in price. And then if Jay was in, drop Jaren Jackson a little bit and probably increase Parker versus Brooklyn up to the top. Although power forwards have been crushing Portland, but yeah, I'm just waiting on that news.
Yeah, no, I agree. Very, very important news. Carmelo is power forward for Portland, so that explains why they've been getting smashed by power forwards.
Right.
Anthony Davis, I'll have some of. I agree with Cam in that if you are going to play him, DraftKings is probably the better place to play him, where you get the bonuses, and he's just really cheap over there. I think that Kristaps Porzingis, I'm going to go right back to the well. It's another good matchup. He's 6'9" over here, still underpriced. Ended up only playing 18 minutes last night because he got into foul trouble, and then by the time his rotation came around, his team was up by 20, so they just never put him back in. But I'll go back to the well. He was chalk yesterday. Going to hope he's lower owned today. Let's see. Jabari Parker. I love Jabari Parker today. I think his ownership's going to be fairly low. He gets a lot of center minutes. He's going to have a matchup with Taurean Prince. I like Taurean Prince for revenge as well, but I also like Jabari Parker in that matchup against him. Blake Griffin is a guy that I'll grab some exposure to going up against Milwaukee. He called out his team. He's still too cheap, 6,600 on DraftKings. He was smashing yesterday, but again, blowout. Game got called. So I'll have some more of him today. And believe it or not, I am going to have a little bit of Melo, I think, just because he should be matched up with Bielitsa. And I think that's a matchup that I think he could win. With that said, it's probably a good idea to grab some Bielitsa because, Melo's defense is just horrendous. But, I agree. It's like semi-deep. It's not as beautifully deep as shooting guard is, but there's a lot of decisions to make. Take me down to Value Town.
Yeah, I would say like shooting guard's probably the most deep position, but I think power forward's pretty deep, at least from what I'm looking at the guys that I have. I like a lot, like you mentioned. He's just 7'5" on FanDuel, but he's like 6'6" on DraftKings, which I really like on DraftKings. That price seems way too cheap. There's just some other guys on FanDuel that I like a little bit more because he's a little bit more priced up, but I think Jared Allen falls into the same category there as more of a play on DraftKings than FanDuel. He's 6'8" on FanDuel. That's a little too high for me as well. And then I'm looking kind of like the main plays for me in this mid-tier are going to be the guy you mentioned previously is Bielitsa going up against Portland. I think this is a really good spot for him. His price hasn't really risen too much with his past performances, and 5'8", I think in this spot he's really a good candidate to kind of hit like his 5-6x price tag there. Dario Saric as well, 6'1", we see with Baines out. He's just been producing really well, seeing a lot of minutes. So I'm on Saric as well. I like Eric Pascal for Golden State. I know their front court's getting a little more deep and Draymond's back, but I just see like him getting a lot of consistent minutes, at least 30 pretty much every night with potential for 35. With this spot versus Charlotte, really good rebounding opportunity for him. And I think at 6'4", if he gets a couple of rebounds, putbacks and stuff, it could be a really good day for him as well. So I don't mind that. And then Aaron Gordon, I think, is okay, but not a super high priority play for me. And that's about it in the mid tier.
Yeah. I kind of went over my mid tier at the top because there was just Anthony Davis by himself. So he went over.
That's all good.
Yeah. Take us to Value Town. I got nothing. It's just Value Town. That's it.
Yeah, and then kind of value for power forward is just going to be Frank Kaminsky again with Aaron Baines out. I think he projects pretty well to get a good amount of run here, and at 4-3 can really pay off that price tag. Just know if you're playing him, he's going to be probably one of the most chalkiest players as well, along with Moutier, I would assume. So if you're playing, it's fine to play like Moutier and Frank in the same lineup. It's just like one of those things to make sure like you have a couple other different guys in your lineup if you're going to play those two together. But Frank projects as a really good value play with that injury. And then another thing you could factor in is Check Diallo. I think at 3-6, like he could be one of those guys that is like a super low owned, like pretty large tournament play, depending on how this game goes. Like he could see run, and we've seen him like smash in like a small amount of minutes in previous seasons and like recently here as well. So I don't hate it. Like I'm not gonna be but I'm not gonna be like jamming him in whatsoever. He's just super cheap, so he's worth noting.
Yeah, man. My favorite guy, I got one guy down here, man. Because on Kaminsky's like 5'5", Saric is like 6'2". They're both fine, but it's Check Diallo, man. I on DraftKings he's 3,800. On FanDuel it's a tougher decision because that position's deep, so I can understand it being hard to like punt that position when it's one of the deeper ones on the slate. But on DraftKings, like it shouldn't really impede you too much. You should be able to make it work with the utility slots. So. I like Diallo. I like him on both sides, but I understand it being more difficult to play him on FanDuel. 3,800. We expect him to get those backup center / forward minutes. We know that with Baines out, Kaminsky, Saric, and him are the three guys kind of rotating. And so I think he's good for like anywhere from 17 to 23 minutes. And we know he's typically, not this season, it hasn't been as much, but he's typically a high point per minute player. So check Diallo. I'll have more than I am comfortable with. Let's go over to centers, Cam. We'll just run all the way through. Talk to me about all the centers, and we'll get up out of here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Cat at the top. I think you can play him. Decent matchup versus Dallas is just it's a little pricey for me. I don't see him like crushing that price tag or anything like that. So he's not a priority whatsoever. Same with Drummond. He's 10K on the back end of a back-to-back. I think his ceiling is somewhat limited as well. He's probably more of a cash play. We've seen like Drummond, even when he does really well, he's not he's not smashing that 10K price tag really. I think he's put up like an 80 this year, and outside of that, he's just been more of like a hindrance to your lineups. He's going to be owned once again, like Drummond always seems to be owned, and I know the Bucks. I know the Bucks have been vulnerable to centers as well. But he's just never really produced in this matchup. And honestly, I just don't get excited about Drummond whatsoever, especially if he's projected at high ownership. So I'd rather just go pay down at this position, to be honest, and kind of go maybe towards like this mid-tier area. Or if you want to punt, you can definitely punt. But I'm looking more at Joe Val, like we mentioned before. He's 8-6 on FanDuel. If he's in, it's why we love Joe Val, right? Because he can just absolutely smash. I hate the price tag on him, but if this coach is going to give him the minutes versus Chicago, I don't know how you project him for less than like what he's been getting. And at 8-6, that's still a really good outing for him. So, and he's going to be low owned because I don't think even if we get the news, I think people will be kind of slow to go there. So I like Joe Val. I like Hassan Whiteside as well a lot today. He's 8-3. Like we've seen the ceiling from Whiteside in the past, and like obviously this season has a really good history versus Sacramento as well. And just one of the better spots for like a big like Whiteside here versus Sacramento. So I like him a lot. I think Gobert is also a pretty good play. He's 7-8. They should need him on the court pretty much the whole game today. If AD, Dwight, and what's the other guy's name? McGee. I'm blanking. Yeah, McGee are going to be on there. So I like Gobert at that price tag. I think he could easily pay that one off. And then kind of going to like the mid tier, I think DeAndre Jordan's okay. I don't see like a huge ceiling game from him unless if like somehow Jared Allen gets in foul trouble, which now that I say that, I wouldn't be shocked. And Deandre Jordan gets like a pretty good amount of run here at 5-5 versus Atlanta. I think that's a pretty good spot there. And then kind of like Dwight Powell, if they're going to need a big for Cat. He's matched up really well with Cat in the past. He's 4-7 on FanDuel. Last year he got a 30, 25, and 46 versus Minnesota. So if you kind of project him to see 25 to 30 minutes in this game, I think he makes a pretty solid play in the bottom tier, because I don't really necessarily think there's really good plays to punt at center. So I'm kind of just working in that 8 to 8K range on FanDuel, and if you want to take some shots on the cheaper guys, I guess you could.
Yeah, Karl Anthony Towns, I don't think I'm going to have a ton of because of his price, but I'm going to have some just because I think his ownership will be low. It makes sense. I understand people wanting to pick guys like Luka over him. I get it, and it's going to be hard to play them both. And then, he might not be everybody's secondary choice either when you got guys like Giannis and LeBron and some of the other options. But I'll have some. I'm not really into Drummond a ton. I think I'd rather go to the mid-tier-ish with guys like, if Jonas Valanciunas plays, I will have a good amount of Jonas Valanciunas. Jared Allen, I do like quite a bit, like you said, against Atlanta. I like Bam Adebayo against Boston, who just really, whether it's Cantor, whoever, I'm just not totally concerned with that matchup. And then Jaren Jackson, we talked about a power forward. I probably will have some, even if Valanciunas plays, but I'll have even more if Valanciunas is out, that's for sure. Although the foul trouble game is real. And for value, I'll mention one guy. If Joe Val's out, I'm going right back to Bruno. Bruno went out there and just was terrible, was awful. But they're thin at that position. If Jaren Jackson were to get into foul trouble, whatever the case may be, he's all they got. And he is typically, this year, he's been a high point player. I think that last game was just like, you just caught like a floor game. But only if Joe Val's out.
I was gonna ask you about that because I think that's an interesting play on FanDuel if you don't get the news, because I think there's kind of like two ways that he could get there. Like you mentioned before, like Jaren Jackson's like a guy who's always like foul, like prone to fouling out, right? So even if both of those guys end up playing, like there's a scenario where Jackson fouls out and then one of these other guys in the front court gets minutes with Joe Val. Or like Joe Val could be ruled out illness after lock, and then like Jaren Jackson falls out, and then like you mentioned previously, like they literally have no one else, and this matchup versus Chicago is like one of the best for someone in the front court. So like I think that makes a lot of sense actually. I don't know about Solomon Hill also has been doing well, but I don't know. I just think like if they're ruled out, like another one of these guys could potentially do well.
30s and 7s. Nation, if you have any questions over on the WiseStream page, check Diablo. You got it, John. Ask the questions in the WiseStream page. If we have time, we'll get to some of the YouTube questions if there are any, but I don't think we're going to have a ton of time. So you guys, WiseTake Nation, those of you subscribe to WiseTake.com, if you're on the WiseStream page, we'll answer your questions from there. Cam, we're going to do top threes. We're going to do top 3 studs, top 3 mid-tier, top 3 value. What are your top 3 studs today?
Yeah, Luka, Trey, and I want to say Giannis. Giannis, I guess.
Giannis. I will go with Luka as well. I'll go with LeBron James, and I will also go with Trey Young. Let's go to mid-tier.
Let me look quick. I like Taurean Prince. What's mid-tier, I guess? What do you consider like under 8?
Yeah. 8 or less is fine.
Okay.
Really, 8,500 or less is probably fine.
Okay. Yeah, then it's pretty much like all these shooting guards, but I'll go Whiteside. Let's go Whiteside, Booker, and Jabari Parker.
Yeah, I like that. I'll go Donovan Mitchell. I'll go Jabari Parker as well, and I'll go Bogdanovich, Bojan Bogdanovich from Utah. Top 3 value.
Yeah, Moutier, Probably Frank the Tank and Diallo and Cam Reddish. I just cheated. I gave 4.
Yeah, I'll go with Moutier, Check Diallo, and Cam Reddish as well. Let's see if there's any questions from the nation. I don't see any questions. Nation, we're gonna get up out of here and get our content updated. I think Cam has to update his core, and then your first draft sheet's up, right? You just gotta update, and then
Yeah, I just didn't have a core yet, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
So yep, I'll update that.
No problem. So Cam will update that. My core plays article will be out within about 10-15 minutes or so for subscribers at WiseTake.com. Paulie D's cheat sheet should be out shortly as well. Stevie Brown's breakdown already up for cash and tournaments. So it's a full go with the content. For Cam, for myself, check one more time for the questions. Oh, we do. I'm sorry, Wig. Do you think game stacking would be contrarian, like Sacramento, Portland, or like Cam said, Milwaukee, Detroit? Yeah, I on a big slate like this, absolutely game stacking is going to be contrarian. There's so many options. People aren't going to be vested in one game.
Like,
It'll be contrarian.
What was that game yesterday where like people were predicting? Well, it's probably San Antonio, Houston.
Right, and that game was double OT.
You stack that game.
Yeah.
You stack a game that goes double OT. You're swimming.
It's the nuts. Did you hear the controversy with that game?
Mm-mm.
At some point in the fourth quarter, James Harden dunked the ball. The ball went through the hoop and then came back out. And
I saw that.
Yeah. So they protested the game. Yeah. So we'll have to see what happens. Supposedly, there's been a scenario once like this years ago, and they had to replay the last X amount of time of the game. Since it happened. So it's
the
interesting.
Fact that the fact that you with like TV and fucking replay nowadays, like how do you not figure that out? I don't understand.
Here's a question: which two centers will be your first choice, DeAndre Jordan or D Jones? I don't think I love either of them, but I guess DeAndre Jordan I'd slightly lean toward. Jones coming off a ceiling game and then a revenge spot. I respect it. I get it. I just don't know. I guess DeAndre Jordan, if I had to pick one, I prefer Jared Allen to both of those guys if you're going to that game. But I understand that might be what fits your build. I get it. With that,
I went Jordan. Yeah, I went DeAndre Jordan just because I was looking at Jones today, but I went Jordan just because Brooklyn's still pretty thin, and like if for some reason Jared Allen got in foul trouble, I think DeAndre Jordan would be
have to play a ton.
See like a really huge increase in minutes, and like there's a scenario maybe like a couple weeks ago, like a week or two ago, where Allen got quick like 3 to 4 fouls, and then DeAndre Jordan saw 30 minutes and he put up a 51. So like that's a scenario here. So that's why I favored Jordan over Jones.
Makes sense. It makes sense. Real quick, guys. Once again, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that that thumbs up button, man. Helps us out, goes a long way, allows us to continue to do some of this stuff for free. We appreciate you guys watching. For Cam, for myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.